Wow, wow, wow. The Indiana Fever have traded NaLyssa Smith and got Sophie Cunningham in a three-way trade. And boy, do I want to talk about it.
Sophie Cunningham just did something no one else in the WNBA has dared to do. She publicly defended Caitlin Clark. While many players have taken shots at Clark, Cunningham is standing by her side, calling out the jealousy and criticism Clark has faced. But that's not all. The Indiana Fever made a bold move by trading away players like NaLyssa Smith, a decision many believe was necessary to fix the team's chemistry and fully embrace Clark as their franchise player. With new veteran additions, a revamped culture, and a rising superstar at the center of it all, the Fever are suddenly a serious contender. And the biggest question now, will this transformation finally silence Clark's doubters and prove she belongs? Stick around, because we're breaking it all down right now. While many WNBA players have voiced frustration over the attention Clark receives, Sophie Cunningham has gone in the opposite direction. She's not just supporting Clark, she's defending her against critics, making it clear that much of the negativity surrounding Clark is rooted in jealousy.
Why does everybody hate Caitlin Clark? And do you hate Caitlin Clark? Come on, talk
dude.
to me.
Absolutely not. I think that she's a gem. I didn't know her, but All-Star Weekend, we kind of bantered back and forth a little bit. And she's lovely. She has a lot of pressure on her shoulders. And I think a lot of people always have a lot to say with people they don't even know or shoes they've never been in. And for me, I think she's handling the pressure very well. She's doing a lot of great things for women's basketball. And I'm a fan. Like, I would love to play with her one day, for real.
Cunningham's stance has instantly made her a fan favorite. While other players in the league throw shade, Cunningham has chosen to rally behind Clark, positioning herself as Clark's enforcer both on and off the court. This stark contrast between Cunningham and other WNBA players has only fueled the growing divide between Clark's supporters and her critics. But Cunningham's backing isn't just about words, it's about action.
Especially Caitlin Clark, and I'm a huge fan, and I never say that, but I think it's fun what she's doing. When it comes to viewership, man, I think a lot of people have a lot to learn about our league, but I think that's a really fun thing. And if you have really anything negative to say about all the viewership and everything that this rookie class is doing, I just think that you're not capitalizing on it and you might be a little jealous. So for me, I'm all for it. I'm about it.
She's joining a Fever squad that desperately needed toughness and leadership. And she's making it known that if anyone wants to take cheap shots at Clark, they'll have to deal with her first. The Fever didn't just make moves to strengthen their roster. They made moves to fix their culture. And that meant cutting ties with players who weren't fully on board with the new direction.
She goes to the Wings, gets a fresh start. Hopefully that works out for her. Arike Ogunbowale has already welcomed NaLyssa Smith there. So that's part of this trade also. So you get these, a lot of moving parts here. Because that's something a lot of people had anticipated and thought that the Fever were going to move on from Smith. And when Howard came in, it felt like, okay, Howard is taking her spot. And now Smith is no longer there to have a spot in the starting lineup or off the bench.
NaLyssa Smith's departure wasn't just a trade, it was a message. Throughout Clark's rookie season, Smith's interactions with her were noticeably strained. Whether it was a lack of enthusiasm or outright resistance to Clark's leadership, something wasn't working, and the Fever knew they had to act. Trading Smith to the Dallas Wings wasn't just about acquiring Jaylen Brown and a draft pick. It was about ensuring that Clark had a locker room that fully embraced her. The same goes for Dijonai Carrington, whose involvement in past tensions further signaled a divide that Indiana no longer wanted.
Ow! Oh, I'm sorry. You poked me in the eye. You're 8-year-old. You did.
I did not poke
Did you do it on purpose?
I did not poke you.
You did it on purpose?
I got him the knee. That was my reflex.
It looked like...
And let's be honest, this move felt like karma. Smith and Carrington resisted the Clark wave, and now they're on a team that has no choice but to compete against her. Meanwhile, Indiana is building a winning culture that no longer tolerates distractions.
Why Indiana Fever fans don't want her on their team. And it's really not that hard to understand, NaLyssa. Let me tell you why. We don't even need to take into account any of your social media outbursts. We don't need to take into account any of your subtweets. We don't need to take into account any of your drama chasing antics off the court. We don't need to take into account your passive aggressive ways. You're removing the Indiana Fever one day in your bio, adding them in the next day in your bio, quote tweeting other people's tweets. We don't even need to take into account all the unnecessary drama and garbage that you add to this team when it comes off the court. All we really need to do is sit back and watch you on the court. It's really not that hard of a concept to grasp.
The Fever didn't just remove players, they added stars. The acquisitions of Sophie Cunningham, DeWanna Bonner and Natasha Howard are statements of intent. These aren't just solid players, they're proven winners. And with the re-signing of Kelsey Mitchell, the Fever have secured a core that is ready to compete. Clark is no longer just a talented rookie on a rebuilding team. She's the centerpiece of a rising WNBA powerhouse. What was once a struggling franchise has now turned into a legitimate playoff threat.
Amazing for women's sports in general. You have so many people, so many new and fresh eyes on our sport that maybe they're a little uneducated and maybe they kind of stir the pot a little bit. And so I get that, but for that class to come in, you have her.
Rebecca Lobo and other ESPN analysts have already pointed out how much stronger the Fever's roster looks compared to last season.
I think they're one piece away. I think they're one piece away from being a title contender. I think adding Natasha Howard puts them potentially in the top 4. Now, if they could sign, say, Nneka Ogwumike or Satu Sabali or even DeWanna Bonner, I would put them in the championship conversation. But they haven't done that. But they have certainly improved by signing Howard. She, to me, fits their system beautifully as a rim-running stretch 4. We know Caitlin Clark is the best get-ahead passer in the WNBA right now. Howard will run the floor. Howard is outstanding in the pick and roll. We saw how good she was doing that when she was in Seattle. What else does she bring? A massive amount of experience. Remember, all the conversation for Indiana going into the playoffs last year, first time they'd made it since 2016, was how little playoff experience they had. You see now they have 33 games. In that first playoff game against the Connecticut Sun this past season, they had 0 playoff experience from their starting 5. Howard brings playoff experience. She's won 3 championships with both Minnesota and Seattle. So to me, she's a huge, huge piece for them. But in terms of a championship, I think they're still one piece away.
Okay. The message is clear. Indiana is no longer just about development. They're about winning.
Breaking news came down, so we have to discuss it. This is what we do here. We're talking about the Indiana Fever making yet another move, Alicia, because they're Thanos right now and they're collecting all the Infinity Stones.
And Clark, surrounded by veterans who believe in her, is in the best position possible to lead them to success.
So Alexa Filippo, hopefully I'm pronouncing her name properly, she is the one who's been breaking all this news. She tweeted 6-time All-Star and WNBA champ DeWanna Bonner is signing with the Indiana Fever by re-signing Kelsey Mitchell, trading for Sophie Cunningham, and signing experienced vets Bonner and Natasha Howard. The Fever have catapulted into the title conversation.
Caitlin Clark isn't just a great player, she's a phenomenon. Her arrival has changed the WNBA in ways that go beyond the court. Attendance is up, TV ratings are through the roof, merchandise sales have hit record highs, and all of it is directly tied to Clark's presence in the league. Reports indicate that Clark alone is responsible for 25% of all WNBA revenue this season. That's not just impact, that's dominance. And the reality is, her influence extends far beyond basketball. Sponsorship deals are pouring in. Companies that never invested in the WNBA before are suddenly showing interest. Even major networks are bidding aggressively for broadcasting rights to her games. Yet, with all this success comes resentment. Some WNBA players believe Clark's fame is undeserved, that she hasn't proven herself yet. But the numbers don't lie. Clark is single-handedly elevating the league in ways no player before her has, and Cunningham understands that. Instead of fighting Clark's impact, she's embracing it. She sees the bigger picture. The WNBA is finally getting the spotlight it deserves, and Clark is the reason why. The Fever didn't just bring in Cunningham for her skill. They brought her in for her attitude. Clark needed someone who could stand up for her, someone who wasn't afraid to push back against the physical play and the hostility she's faced in her rookie year. And that's exactly what Cunningham brings. She's tough, she's aggressive, and she's not here to let Clark be pushed around anymore. The viral All-Star moment where Cunningham jokingly told Clark to join Phoenix now has a new twist, because instead of playing against her, Cunningham is now her fiercest ally. Fans are already hyped to see how this dynamic plays out. And make no mistake, Cunningham and Clark are ready to fight back against the league's hostility. Together, they're setting the tone for a new era in Indiana basketball. Sophie Cunningham's decision to defend Clark has shifted the conversation in a way no one saw coming. Instead of allowing Clark to be an isolated target, Cunningham has turned the tables, exposing the jealousy and criticism for what it is. Meanwhile, the Fever's roster moves prove that Indiana isn't here to waste time. They've fully committed to Clark, surrounding her with the right players and cutting out the ones who didn't fit. Clark's shooting ability, impact on revenue, and influence on the league's future all prove one thing. She's not just another rookie, she's a game changer. And as much as some WNBA players might push back, the reality is undeniable. Caitlin Clark is here to stay. The season ahead will answer all of these questions, but one thing is certain, the Fever have made their choice. And with Clark and Cunningham leading the way, they're ready to shake up the WNBA like never before.